Boy, I was watching this. Okay, I was watching this and I was like, you know what? This is actually really important for people to watch. Like, real
times when you would love to have another address or phone number to use instead of your home address and personal number.
It doesn't.
Wouldn't it be great if you could view
when damaged, recognized?
I mean, unless you're really in this industry, it does.
Everybody, it's Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. I have a question.
How would you ever find
this?
Okay, it's not like necessarily saying, "Hey, if your claims adjuster, go come watch this."
I'm going to introduce each of you, give you the opportunity to make an opening statement, and then we'll have some rounds of questioning. Before we start that, let me just say a word about what brings us here and the significance of this hearing. In the last year alone, disasters have devastated communities across our country. The state of Missouri, where I'm from, tornadoes have ripped across the state, leaving thousands without power, leaving homes damaged, in some cases leaving families without loved ones. Hurricanes Milton and Helene have cut a brutal path through the southeast, uprooting trees, destroying roofs, turning family lives into a nightmare. On the other end of the country in California, brutal wildfires have burned entire communities to the ground. And these disasters have done more than cause property damage, though that is quite significant. They have done more than cause inconvenience, though that can be harrowing. They have destroyed the lives of people. We're not talking here about minor inconveniences. We're talking about moms who've had to haul 5-gallon buckets of water because the pipes are gone. We're talking about grandparents who've had to sleep in their cars because there's no roof over their heads. We're talking about families who are maxing out their credit cards because their insurance companies won't pay out any damage claims. And that's what brings us to today's hearing. Where do Americans turn after catastrophes like the ones we've experienced just in the last calendar year? The answer is they turn to their insurance companies. And they don't turn to their insurance companies for a handout.
Okay, so let me say that again. So I may have been over talking, but this guy, again, he is here to present that the insurance companies are not treating people fairly. Okay, so people are, the insurance industry is being very scrupulous in their handling of claims, and they're actually manipulating adjusters to change what their thoughts were about the damage. And so you're going to see on here this adjuster who is going to testify about how they manipulated him and his work in order to benefit Allstate. While adjusters are out there trying to help the policyholders, while adjusters are out there trying to work with contractors, you'll hear that from him. The insurance company in the office is going to change what their statements were. And they're just, again, manipulating the situation. So essentially, if you don't change it to what they want you to change it by, your job is at stake. So they're kind of, it's almost kind of like a Cassie Diddy situation where, like, you want to work here? Well, do this for me. Period. Or we'll find somebody else. And he's going to this adjuster is actually going to tell you how they did just that. He didn't want to do it, so guess what? Other people came, and there's a homeowner who talks before he does. So this is so I'm going to skip past him, although a lot of people said the first 5 minutes are really good. So let's play a couple. Let's introduce this guy so you guys can kind of get the gist of what this.
Sleep in their cars because there's no roof over their heads. We're talking about families who are maxing out their credit cards because their insurance companies won't pay out any damage claims. And that's what brings us to today's hearing. Where do Americans turn after catastrophes like the ones we've experienced just in the last calendar year? The answer is they turn to their insurance companies. And they don't turn to their insurance companies for a handout. This isn't charity that we're talking about. They turn to their insurance companies because they pay premiums to those insurance companies. It's a contract. And by the way, it's required in law. Americans are required to purchase. Property owners are required to purchase insurance. And so they do so dutifully in every state in the union. And they pay their premiums dutifully in every state in the union. And unfortunately, time after time, they find when disaster strikes in their moment of utmost need, the insurance companies come back to them and they delay and they deny and they offer excuses and they send out 2 adjusters and 3 adjusters and 15 adjusters and 25 adjusters, and they constantly change the estimates. And at the end of the day, they just won't pay what is due, what is required.
So like he's saying, they're not paying what they're supposed to pay. Okay. So he's from
in the next 30
Minnesota.
seconds, I'll tell you exactly how to sell your house in less.
He was from Minnesota. The next guy is from New Jersey, a state that I've worked claims in. And I've been told when I was working claims where it would be like, hey, even if you're a contractor, if you've ever worked in roofing, if you've ever adjusted a claim, you know how roofing is set up. If you don't know, there's diagrams of roofing, there's standards, how it's supposed to be put together. You should not be putting a new roof on an old roof. So but I was out there where they would tell absolutely no roof replacements. And I would see 3 layers of roofs where I could only give a roof repair. And guess what? That roof repair came below the deductible. So that was in Jersey. That was the last time I decided to work. That's the last time I worked with the insurance companies. After that, I stopped working with the insurance companies, but I still get to work in claims. So let's hear a little bit about
the ability of the American people to tackle the disaster challenges they face. So I look forward to hearing from the witnesses today about their ground experiences and from the insurance companies about what they plan to do better in terms of serving policyholders. We may hear some harsh criticism, but criticism, I hope, that will work to rectify these problems. And I do want to make sure that we're commending some of the insurance companies for showing up today as well to be able to hear that feedback. Thank you, and I yield back.
Now, okay, insurance companies do not get in trouble. Okay, they're not going to get in trouble. They're there for showmanship. They probably won't change. If they do, they may change for a little bit of time. But that's every big company, right? They all are going to do the things that they do, and they'll pay their little measly fines that really isn't going to hurt them, and they'll continue to hurt people.
Thank you very much, Senator Kim. It's the practice of the subcommittee to swear in witnesses who...
Okay, so they're going to swear some people in. So let's forward to this homeowner who had an issue with Allstate after being with Allstate for 6 years.
Structures. Damages are both internal and external. In addition, electrical systems, brickwork, gutters, lightings, doors, and more were damaged. The total damage was very extensive and has been thoroughly documented and shared with Allstate. Allstate's first inspection took place a few weeks later. Our first adjuster visit took approximately 5 hours.
The first adjuster took 5 hours. Okay.
The adjuster was very detail-oriented and thorough. He spoke with us at length and took copious amounts of photos. He verbally confirmed what we suspected, that this was a significant loss. After the initial inspection, I followed the adjuster's guidance and contacted a number of contractors, including but not limited to general contractors, roofing contractors, electricians, chimney, landscaping, and fence repairs. I was provided with a number of quotes.
By the way, these are claims from Hurricane Helene. So that's why she has so much damage. A tree fell on her house,
which reflect the cost of living and cost of needed repairs to bring our house back to standard. These quotes were shared with Allstate. However, before the adjuster could complete his report, Allstate removed him from this file, stating that the process was taking too long. We called Allstate many times about this to stress that we wanted to continue the process already in flight. Nonetheless, Allstate sent a new adjuster against our wishes. A new inspection was scheduled and the process started all over again.
So after 5 hours, all this time goes by. She reaches out to a whole bunch of people. Allstate says, guess what? Start over. That's the delay tactic because they don't want to pay. They know it's going to be a big job. Time? What kind of excuse is it that, oh, it's taking too long? How much faster is it going to go by starting over?
The second inspection lasted under 2 hours and significantly downplayed the damage. For example, the adjuster stated that he would include money only for one half of the collapsed roof because he was not convinced that all of it needed repairs.
Now, I don't want to say I guarantee, but I wonder what type of education that adjuster has to be able to make that determination. Most adjusters aren't engineers, architects. They don't come from that background. So who is he to say that?
I assure you that the entire structure did need repairs after the impact of the 70-foot tree. In December, we received Allstate's initial valuation of $46,000, and we were stunned. This amount did not begin to reflect the real-world cost of the repairs and estimates from the contractors. It was perfectly clear that working with Allstate will be increasingly difficult. On January 6th, we retained Matthew Hunter of Hunter Public Adjusting for an independent view of the situation. Matthew conducted a multi-day inspection and confirmed our fears. He also recommended hiring a structural engineer. We engaged with Shields Engineering Group, whose report again confirmed our concerns. Our damage was extensive, and the cost to restore our home was far beyond Allstate's offer.
Okay. Oh,
don't wish. Don't.
All right. So you see, I'm happy to have these little commercial breaks right here. So what she ended up doing was hiring a PA, a public adjuster, to try to help him. He spent days at the house. First guy spent 5 hours. Second guy spent a couple hours. And then they still saying, hey, go hire a structural engineer. I wonder if that adjuster was a structural engineer.
Matthew also formally requested that Allstate reassign our claim to the large loss division. Despite repeated requests, these were consistently denied. On March 14th, we submitted our sworn proof of loss of $497,000.
So they need $497,000. Allstate paid them $40,000. 10% of what they needed to repair the house. I don't know how much their limited liability is, but you can't submit a proof of loss beyond your limited liability. So Allstate should have been paying them $497,000, I think she said.
Only then did Allstate reassign our case to the large loss team, who appointed a third adjuster.
That means she's got to start over again.
Few days later, Matthew met with the third adjuster on site. The adjuster reviewed both the engineering's report and Matthew's estimate and expressed no disagreements. He stated he would submit the full estimate for approval. However, the final estimate came back from Allstate at just under $100,000.
Okay, so now this adjuster, again, when I talked about the manipulation, this adjuster went out, agreed with their findings, and then they still only got less than a fraction of what they needed, less than 25%, let me say.
When Matthew contacted the adjuster for an explanation, the adjuster confirmed that Allstate had rejected his initial submission of over $400,000, instructing him to remove numerous line items, not once, but twice, until the amount was reduced to a fraction of the actual loss. This brings us to May.
Okay, so again, this stuff happened for the hurricane, Helene, September, now it's May. She's got about $90,000 or just under $100,000 because Allstate told the adjuster to change his estimate. Allstate wasn't out there, that adjuster was, reviewed the reports, but Allstate said, nah, we don't care, change it out.
8 months since the tree fell on our house.
8 months later, okay, so she even was saying it. I didn't even know she was about to say that.
No significant repairs have been made. Our roofing remains damaged and a hazard to our family. Electrical wires visible, doors difficult to close, fences broken, and much more. As you can imagine, it is difficult to embark on a repair and reconstruction project without clarity on the budget. We are homeowners, not lawyers, not engineers, not insurance experts. We have been Allstate customers for 6 years.
You know, people always say, I've been with Allstate for so long or this long. You could be with them a day, you could be with them a millennium. They're going to treat you the same.
Since October 2019. During that time, we have paid our bills on time and in full. But when we needed Allstate the most, they failed us.
Don't they say you're in good hands with Allstate?
This is no longer about just a roof. It's about the failure of a system that leaves families vulnerable after catastrophic events.
Yep.
We respectfully call on this body for oversight to ensure that insurers are held accountable when they act in bad faith, delay resolution, or make it financially impossible for families to restore their homes and their lives. Thank you for your time, your service, and hearing our story today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miguel. Our next witness is Mr. Nick Schroeder. Mr. Schroeder is an adjuster who works for Allstate through Pilot Catastrophe. He was the first.
Okay, so y'all know who Pilot is, right? That's one of the companies that Allstate sends out so that Allstate isn't liable for things like this, okay? Because sometimes it's not necessarily Allstate who's changing it. It's the Pilot folks who know Allstate isn't going to want to see $490,000 going out the door. And they're going to try it every single time. So up next is this adjuster who worked through Pilot working Allstate claims.
First adjuster to inspect Ms. Miguel's home. And he's sitting just to her left. Mr. Schroeder, go ahead.
So he was the first adjuster out.
Thank you, Senator. Can you hear me? So I've worked as a licensed insurance adjuster for nearly 6 years, holding licenses in 6 states. During this time, I've inspected property damage and prepared repair estimates on behalf of over 17 insurance carriers, including Allstate and State Farm. While handling claims for Allstate following Hurricane Helene, I was assigned to investigate a property damage claim submitted by Mrs. Natalia Miguel.
That's the lady.
My inspection revealed significant structural damage, including a slate roof impacted by a fallen oak tree, compromised framing in the breezeway, damage to an underground sprinkler system, and broken terracotta floor tiles. Although I was initially directed to attribute the floor tile cracks to settling,
see that guy in the back? Did y'all see that guy in the back just laugh? Because he knows terracotta floors is settling. What? They just happen to crack. They crack by settling. Okay. A tree fell. Okay. 80. I don't know. I think she said an 80-inch or an 80-something tree, 80-foot tree. Okay. But terracotta's got to be a pretty nice house. Look at him. Look at him laughing in the back. Look, wow, he says. Look, Nick is even laughing. Look, he lost his spot. So funny.
Okay, I was initially directed to attribute the floor tile cracks to settling and to recommend a repair rather than a replacement of that breezeway roof. I concluded that a full replacement was necessary due to split rafters and a cracked concrete underlayment. Shortly before I finished my estimate, however, I was taken off the case and the claim was reassigned to a different adjuster.
So he was almost finished and they reassigned it.
In general, my experience handling Allstate claims was marked by repeated frustration. My estimates were frequently rejected or returned with requests or modifications that often reduced coverage. These changes typically involved reclassifying line items to minimize costs, such as coding a job for an electrician to a roofer when other roof work is present.
So if you guys are, I wonder if any of you guys are who are watching knows Xactimate. Okay, Xactimate has different codes for different trades. So an electrician should be the one doing a job because a roofer is not a licensed electrician. But because it will cost more, he was told to change the line item so that it doesn't appear to be an electrical work, for it to be a roofer's work, so that way they don't have to pay that charge, like a service fee for the electrician to come out.
As in replacing an electrically powered roof vent, this recoding would then prevent the estimating software from prompting a labor minimum charge for an electrician to safely disconnect and reconnect the hardwired vent. But more commonly, these changes were to simply exclude hail-damaged shingles due to wear and tear. In one case involving policyholders, Suzanne and Dennis Carter, I was instructed to deny shingle damage as wear and tear, despite visible hail impact marks of consistent size and shape as nearby dented roofing metal. Although I provided a hail report confirming activity near the property.
So that's strange because he works for the insurance company and he still had to provide the hail report. Usually adjusters don't even know of a hail report. I just wonder who's watching, who knows what a hail report even is. And so he's saying there was hail. He confirmed the hail with the metals. It was uniform, and then continue to listen to what he says next.
On the reported date of loss, the claim was reassigned after I refused to amend the estimate to exclude the hail damage.
Okay, so he said, no, I'm not going to change it out. And they said, well, we'll just reassign it because he's not going to do it. We'll send it to somebody who will. Even though he showed them reports that hail damage fell on the house the day the date of loss, the day of the date of loss. So an insurer has to say, hey, this damage happened on such and such date. And they said hail fell on this date, and Nick confirmed that hail fell on this date with the official hail report.
In another case involving Nicolette Little, I was able to finalize an estimate only after arranging for my team lead to personally review and approve it. At one point, an all-state staff adjuster who was assigned to assist me in getting claims approved advised me to remove coverage for the wind-damaged shingles based on a misunderstanding of standard damage indicators. He claimed a creased shingle was not wind damaged because it was not torn. However, industry standard indicators of wind damage recognized across all carriers I've ever worked for include torn shingles, blown off tabs, and shingle creasing.
Now, I want a shingle crease. How does a shingle crease? I mean, do y'all know what wear and tear is? Let's see if I can pull up a picture of a creased shingle. A shingle only creases. Let me share this new screen real quick, and then we'll get right back to the video here. Let's do present, stop share, present, new share. We are going to go with creased shingles right here. That's a creased shingle. Okay. Up here, flaps. This is how is that wear and tear if it's not uniform? Do y'all know what like wear and tear is? You got to tell me in the comments. That way I can maybe explain some things for you guys. Wear and tear will be consistent. Wear and tear is like over and over. How does it get creased if it's not being lifted up and down by the wind? It's not going to happen from wear and tear. Oh, shoot. I didn't add that. That's a creased shingle. Okay. That's a creased shingle. It's that line right here. Okay, this is a crease shingle. Crease tab, flipped up tab. And he's saying, well, because it's not missing, it's not creased, it's not wind damage. How else did it get the crease if not by the wind? Okay, let's go back to the video. Crazy. How is he saying it's not a creased shingle or wind damage if it's creased? Everybody knows a creased shingle is wind damage, not wear and tear. Like who's up on the roof using the roof? Like, oh, let me just check these shingles and do this every single, day. Nobody's doing that. Yep. So when they see the storm damage, they're gonna pay. Another one. Oh, my share. I haven't seen this new guy yet. That's where I watched those two people talk first, and then I was like, okay, I got to show you guys this because this is crazy. Hmm. Those picture takers are like the what do you call like Hancock? So they go out, they take the pictures. That's who he's referring to. Mm. And that's what I have trouble with when I have to deal with Allstate claims because I'm like, there's no way you wrote this. We talked about X, Y, Z. Who is writing this? How come it's being reviewed by who? And why is it taking so long? And then when you come back, you're like, there's no way you did this. There's no way. Right. Yep. Because they're there. Yep. So you see, that's why I talk about that manipulation. He's saying they force them to change out line items and materials that aren't even what that person had. Manipulation. So I got to sign something that I don't even agree with. Mm. Okay, so he must have been that third adjuster that came out and said, "Hey, I agree with that lady who was talking first." So he so he even was not listening to what the contractor sets the price, everybody. He writes an estimate. All state writes estimate. Your contractor doesn't write an estimate, they write invoices. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost. I don't care what Allstate says it's going to cost. This is how much it's going to cost the client, the homeowner. And when you set that policy up, Allstate says, okay, we're going to pay for what it costs to bring you back to pre-loss condition, not a partial. And this is what these guys are doing, partials. Mm, mm, maybe, maybe another one. Okay, so I did get one comment so far.
I'm Douglas
Oh my gosh,
Quinn,
you can't
Executive
hear it.
Director of the American Policyholder Association. We're a nonprofit watchdog group that monitors and reports on insurer fraud against property owners. The APA formed after Superstorm Sandy. My home was flooded. I was at my weakest moment. And instead of helping me, my insurer hired U.S. Forensics, an engineering firm who created a report that an independent engineer determined was false. My insurer denied coverage for the worst damage to my home. Despite being fully insured, it took me 7 years to rebuild and get back home. At 61 years old, this is one of the most traumatizing betrayals of my life. I was not alone. And the Sandy engineering fraud scandal, CBS News, 60 Minutes, and PBS Frontline all reported on policyholders wrongfully denied nearly $500 million in claims. When asked if he participated in fraud, an insurer's claims executive pled the Fifth Amendment.
So they didn't want to address it, right? The Fifth Amendment, I'm not going to even talk about it.
Thousands.
So sorry, I didn't see that it wasn't, my video wasn't on the stage probably for like the last 8 minutes, but I do adjust claims in South Carolina.
Of families paid for insurance as a safety net only to be betrayed on their claims. For many, it was the end of the American dream as they lost their homes. This wasn't the first time insurers defrauded policyholders, and it won't be the last.
Wow.
The APA routinely receives reports of insurer fraud. Often, the insurer will hire an engineering firm to inspect the property and write a report, which will then be manipulated to reach a predetermined outcome. Insurers are shielded by plausible deniability that the engineers commit the fraud, but the insurers are the ones driving it. They continue to use U.S. forensics and other fraudsters. Insurers play the same shell game with adjusters. Many adjusters inspecting homes aren't employed by the insurer, but rather by third-party administrators. They technically a separate company. These TPAs are simply alter egos of the insurers and commit the same fraud the engineers do. Trained adjusters write an honest estimate only to be instructed to alter and delete facts by a reviewer. This isn't just a few bad apples. It's industry-wide and has been for decades.
Okay, so this guy happened to him. That's why he started the United Policyholders, because he knows it's happening, like he says, industry-wide. I mean, come on, people just want to be back in their homes, and that's what they pay for their insurance to do.
It happened in Katrina, it happened in Sandy, it happened in Irma, and it's happening right now. I worked in the insurance industry for 30 years. There are thousands of dedicated, honest professionals who take pride in helping families recover after a loss. Many of those professionals would be appalled to learn what happens to policyholders during claims. Those aware of the fraud are afraid to speak out, and for good reason. In this regard, insurers are like gangsters. Those who speak out get blacklisted, harassed, and sued.
So you guys
After
always
Katrina,
talk about that blacklist. Is there a blacklist? Is there a blacklist? Is there a blacklist? You know, how come I'm not getting paid? How come I'm not getting hired? For those of you who wants to, those lists are out there, but you know, every company, whether they're in insurance or not, is going to have a list of people they don't want to hire. So what does one do?
2 employees blew the whistle on State Farm's plan to shift claims to the National Flood Insurance Program using systemic engineering fraud. State Farm sued the 2 sisters, but after years of litigation, State Farm agreed to pay the federal government $100 million to settle the case. Recently, Jordan Lee, a young insurance adjuster, reported that a TPA he worked for altered his reports. The insurer that hired the TPA, Heritage Insurance, is now suing Jordan for defamation, even though he did not accuse Heritage of changing the reports, but rather the TPA they employed. However, Florida regulators recently hit Heritage with a historic $1 million fine for multiple violations in handling of insurance claims.
Okay, so $1 million, hey, I'm not sure if that's a lot for Heritage. They are in Florida. There's not many companies in Florida, but like I said, it takes that type of action for them to actually get in trouble. How much had to happen for an insurance company actually to get in trouble? The state I write complaints like about Allstate, and they'll say, well, this is going to go into a private investigation. So even the state is not going to be transparent about how bad these insurance companies are doing.
Jordan's a kid. He doesn't have any money. Most people believe that they're suing Jordan not for money, but rather to silence he and other whistleblowers. Many assert that the insurance industry's playbook is break the law and ruin the whistleblower.
The game is
I want to know, while we're watching this, I want to know from you guys, what comments, questions do you guys have so far?
Speak to insurance insiders who are terrified of retaliation. If it wasn't for whistleblowers like Jordan Lee, journalists like the Washington Post's Brianna Sachs, and honest plaintiffs' attorneys like Stephen Bush, we would never even hear about the fraud. In fact, all too often, we don't. Insurers are committing fraud and ruining the lives of the very people who pay them for protection. Premiums are skyrocketing, but Americans receive less in claims. The American consumer is being squeezed. The fraud is about more than money. Americans buy insurance for protection in their weakest moments, when their homes are wind damaged or burned, and they're scrambling to find housing for their family and schools for their children. The last thing survivors need is a war with their insurance company.
Exactly.
The stress destroys marriages
Yep.
and spoils childhoods.
Yep.
The fraud also affects the federal government. When their insurer denies valid claims, homeowners are forced to rely on FEMA and federal aid. The American taxpayer is now subsidizing the fraud.
Yep.
This would not be possible if insurer fraudsters were held accountable for their actions, but states have proven incapable of doing so. The APA has given gift-wrapped fraud cases to state authorities only to have them languish without results. It's time for federal enforcement. It's time for federal prosecutions. It's time for these criminal organizations to be brought to justice. To this panel, I say, the American public needs you. Thank you.
Let's see if they come in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. Our final witness is Mr. Jacob Vertel. Mr. Vertel is a husband, a father, and a State Farm policyholder. He resides in North Carolina. He and his family suffered devastating damage to their home after a tornado, and he's here to testify to that effect. Mr. Vertel, the floor is yours.
Okay, another homeowner.
Thank you. Early on the morning of September 27th, my family was awoken by a tree crashing through our roof. My wife and in-laws, who were in town visiting at the time.
Okay, September 27th. If it was 2024, he didn't say, but that was also when Hurricane Helene was coming through. So I'm not sure, but he says his was a tornado. So just keep in mind, we started with a homeowner, went to 2 adjusters, a policy, I guess the chairman or whoever for the United Policyholders, which is an advocate group, because the Senate and state ignores all of this stuff until it, really builds up. Okay, whatever. That's, time takes time, whatever. And now we're finishing with this other homeowner.
Rushed into our toddler's room to make sure he was unharmed. The storm was still raging, so we moved my pregnant wife and child to the floor next to our kitchen island in our single-story ranch home, where we felt it was safest. Before we lost power, I was able to file a claim with State Farm. At that moment, I didn't realize just how severe the storm was. I was simply focused on figuring out where my family would stay that evening. While on the call, we abruptly lost power and cell service. For the next several hours, we sought cover as a total of 4 trees fell on our home and water poured through half the house. Once the storm subsided, all 5 of us camped together for 3 days in what we assumed to be the safest section of the home. With my wife's pregnancy being high risk, it was critical that she had access to medical care, and our 2-year-old son needed a safe environment. The moment I could, I evacuated my family to my in-laws' home in Ohio. With them safe, I returned to North Carolina to begin the insurance process and to find a place for us to stay once water was restored to the area. Our first inspection with State Farm was on October 7th, 10 days after Hurricane Helene. The inspection seemed to go well enough. While on site, I spoke to the inspector about the ample additional living expense coverage included in our policy. You can imagine my dismay when I received a voicemail the next day walking back the information he shared, instead stating that our home was being considered habitable by State Farm. A home where I watched water pour through the outlets.
Yeah, so they'll say, hey, you guys got room, you got water, you got power, you got a hole in your roof because 6 trees hit it, but hey, it's not that cold, is it? Stay here. That's what they're telling them. You just go eat out. That's what they'll tell. Just go eat out. No worries. I know you got young kids. I know the place isn't cleaned up yet. That's what they're telling this guy right now.
The sky is visible from our 2-year-old's bedroom, our nursery to be, our living room, and our bathroom.
So he has
At that time, cell service in Asheville was still limited, so my wife from Ohio was trying to speak with State Farm. The few times I managed to get on the phone with her, she gave me agonizing updates about the undue stress being put on her, as the basic commitments of our policy were already being aggressively denied. It became clear we needed support and did not have the capacity to take this on ourselves, so we hired a public adjuster. Not long after, our decision to hire a public adjuster was reaffirmed when we received our first estimate of the damage from State Farm. The sum we were to receive would not even cover fixing the roof, let alone repairing our entire home. From there, we watched as our case was handled with little communication from State Farm. Emails went unanswered for weeks at a time. We were told that State Farm had issued a payment on our claim on October 24th. That check did not show up. 1 month after the storm, I moved my family back to Asheville into a rental at our own expense. From this new home base, we spent months driving across town trying to protect our house from further damage. Draining tarps, resecuring them, setting rodent traps, doing all we could to prevent the pipes from bursting. Covered only by tarp.
So he's taking his own money. Just imagine a homeowner who doesn't have those type of means to go put the tarp up, even no one would to do that. Getting food, like just trying to clean up stuff because you're like, I got to get my family back in the house.
Our home struggled to retain heat during the mountain winter. During this period, Buncombe County placed a placard on our home stating that the property was not safe to occupy or enter. After 3 months of no movement, we were hopeful things would finally start progressing when State Farm assigned a new adjuster to our case. The damage payment that was supposedly issued in October was reissued in December. However, we quickly lost hope again when it became evident that we were starting over from scratch, having to provide all claim information again. It was as if all information from the previous 3 months was lost. All the while.
Now, good and well, if you've ever, I don't know, again, y'all, let me check the comments because I don't know which of you guys have worked the storm, let me know. But good and well that if those files were emailed to State Farm, they stay in the file. They ain't going nowhere. Maybe they had a system issue. Maybe it was a technical thing. But I've worked at State Farm that you could go years back. It's information still there.
State Farm communication remains scarce.
So let me check the comments.
So if I turned off Ada tomorrow, I would need to.
Let's see what you guys may have put into the comments. Nope, no new comments. All right. We'll keep watching seeing what's going on. But man, happy.
Re-inspections were discussed, then no one would show up. And the little communication we did receive, it became clear that this new adjuster was not qualified to speak on general home construction and repair. We repeatedly reaffirmed the need for critical repairs, only to be met with the adjuster's opinion of, I don't think that is necessary. He dismissed formal inspections conducted by contractors and mitigation specialists. The broken trusses struggling to hold up our roof simply were not a matter of opinion. After 123 days of our home sitting untouched and relentless communication on our end, a re-inspection was finally scheduled. During this inspection, as we stood staring at our gutted home, State Farm's adjuster admitted that their initial estimate was too low and said he would be refiling for the policy limit. Okay. Even so, an hour later, we stood in front of the county's unsafe structure notice as he told my now 8-month pregnant wife that separate living accommodations for our family were not required and that the county notice, which we had provided at least half a dozen times, did not matter in the eyes of State Farm.
Wow.
Despite
the county is telling him that you can't go in there. Now, there is parts of the policy that says we don't cover actions that are like government authority, but that's not the cause of loss. Right? This is the cause of loss is the storm, which caused them to say it's not habitable.
This adjuster then admitted he was unfamiliar with our specific policy, instead citing a policy that did not apply to us. He went on to say that he would see what he could do about covering additional living expenses now that it was winter. After dealing with State Farm for 5 months, it was no surprise that when a revised estimate of the damages came through in February, only minuscule adjustments were made. Expenses we had already covered personally and for which we had provided State Farm with invoices were short paid. Again, we found ourselves needing to continue covering expenses out of pocket while still being unable to fix our home. At that point, we sought legal assistance and were ultimately forced to file suit against State Farm. After 157 days, only after we took legal action, the structural engineer we had been requesting for months was finally sent by State Farm. Now, 228 days after the storm, our home remains untouched with no progress being made.
Nearly a year.
My wife, who was 3 months pregnant at the time of the storm, gave birth to our daughter 2.5 months ago. Our son turned 3 in April. What could have been just a blip in his childhood has become a major event in his life as he repeatedly asks to go back home. We need State Farm to give us our life back. Thank you for hearing our experience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vitale. Thanks to all of the witnesses. We'll now have some rounds of questioning. I will start, and let me start with you, Ms. Miguel. So it's September 27th, 2024, Hurricane Helene hits Georgia, hits your home, causing very significant damage. I think we've got a picture of some of the damage here. Let's have a look. Does this look pretty familiar to you?
It does.
It looks pretty severe. I mean, that's a massive tree right there in the front part of your home, and you're an Allstate policyholder. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Allstate sends out an adjuster. You said pretty quickly, just a moment ago. Is that
about
correct?
3 weeks after?
Oh well, that's not very quick. Okay, 3 weeks after. All right, and that you were told at the time in this first inspection verbally that the adjuster agreed with you, this was very severe damage. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
I think we maybe have a second picture. Let's look at another view of this just to give a real impression. Here's a breezeway that looks to be nearly completely destroyed. You can see some of that roof damage, quite extensive, that you were talking about in your testimony. All of this looks familiar to you, I'm sure.
Yes.
Now, after this first adjuster agrees with you that, yes, there's very significant damage, what did Allstate, when they finally came back with an actual assessment, a real number, what was that number again?
$46,000.
$46,000. So you went to considerable expense on your own. You hired your own independent adjuster to come back out and do all of this over again. And that person, looking at all of this evidence, that person found that the damage was in the neighborhood of what?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, how your independent adjuster, how much did that person estimate the damage was?
$497,000.
$497,000. Allstate offered you 40, basically.
Correct.
And you're still waiting for this process to be resolved all this time later. Is that right?
That's right.
Let me just ask you now, Mr. Schroeder, because you were that first adjuster who worked for Allstate who came out to look at this home. You were a field adjuster deployed for Allstate through pilot catastrophe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you were the first one to inspect Ms. Miguel's home after the hurricane. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you went in person, I think. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you spent several hours, Ms. Miguel said in her testimony a moment ago, you spent several hours doing a very thorough inspection. Is that your memory also?
Yeah, that's correct.
And how serious would you say the damage was in your own, just your personal recollection?
Extremely, probably the most serious that I saw on this deployment.
Wow, the most serious that you saw on the deployment, which makes sense given these photos. So you start, if I understand correctly, you start to prepare an estimate for a full replacement of this breezeway right here. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But then you were instructed, you were told by the higher ups, no, we're not going to do a full replacement of the breezeway. So only do an assessment for a partial replacement of the breezeway. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
okay. So then you start working on that, and you're working to get as big of a damage claim as you can for Ms. Miguel in line with the facts after you've already been told, no, we're not going to do the full thing. And then before you can even complete your work, you're taken off the case. Is that right?
Yes.
Why do you think that happened?
This is what Ivy League universities
so why do you guys
can
think
get
that
into
happened?
with a
Why was
3.6
it taken off the
GPA.
case?
90% of students.
I was told it was due to time I was taking too long, but I don't believe that is the case. I think that Allstate saw from this and my recently prior estimates of being very thorough and complete and going back and forth with reviewers on coverage, that it was going to be a higher estimate and it would be more cost effective to reassign it to an adjuster that would listen better.
Yeah, an adjuster who would lowball the policyholder, really. I mean, that's what we're talking about. You're removed from the case. They took 3 weeks to send you out to begin with, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're removed once it looks like you're actually going to do some justice for Ms. Miguel. Let me just ask you more broadly, Mr. Schroeder, have you ever been told to change estimates to reduce payouts?
Yeah, frequently.
And when you've pushed
that's
back
the manipulation
on this,
I'm talking about, y'all.
if you've ever said no, what happens then?
If I say no, then the claims typically get reassigned due to, they say, either lack of compliance or other reasons, like I'm taking too long.
Okay, so somebody is out there to writing estimates, and then it would be quicker to just reassign an adjuster, even though somebody's already been out there. How does that make sense? Make it make sense. I'm not understanding how that works.
In your experience, was this kind of thing a one-off thing, or was this a pattern?
This was definitely a...
I hope he asked this question. Have they ever told you to change something to increase the estimate?
Pattern.
Is it fair to say then that Allstate's priority in your experience was not getting the best possible award for their clients, it was in protecting their bottom line?
Certainly in protecting their bottom line, yeah.
Mr. Milliken, let me just come to you because you were then yet another adjuster in this same case sent out to look at Ms. Miguel's property. You worked as a field adjuster for Allstate through pilot catastrophe for about 8 years. Do I have that right?
At least 8 years, yes.
Yeah. In that time, you have personally inspected hundreds of properties damaged after storms and disasters. Is that fair to say?
Thousands.
Thousands. And you're trained to determine the extent and cause of the damage and how much it costs to repair it. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me just ask you about Ms. Miguel's claim. You were assigned to re-inspect her home. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you testified earlier that you went about that diligently. You could see that there was very extensive damage. That was your initial impression. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And you reviewed all of the reports. There was an engineer's report by this time. There was the public adjuster's report. You reviewed all of those things diligently. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what's next?
When you submitted your report to Allstate recommending several $100,000 worth of payments to Ms. Miguel and her husband, what happened then?
My estimate was rejected, and I was advised to alter it to a lower figure.
Okay, and just so you guys know, if you've never worked claims, again, I don't know who's in the chat. You are welcome to ask me questions in the comments. But the claim process is this: when you work for Allstate or State Farm, you go out, you do your thing, you come back, you write your assessment or your estimate. Typically, if it's over a certain amount, depending on your authority, if you're new, your authority may be 10,000. They're not going to review too much underneath that number. If you're a little bit more seasoned, it may be 25 or more. Well, if it's more, if the amount of your estimate is more than the authority that you have, so you're at 10, your estimate's up here, you have to send it to a team lead to review it to make sure, hey, you're not just putting in any and everything, or as they're saying, reviewing it to make sure that they minimize the loss. So even though he's a trained, and he mentioned in his testimony, his opener, that, hey, we are no longer allowed to make these decisions. It all goes to a reviewer who looks at it and then comes back to us and rejects the stuff that I did, my work. Why are you rejecting it and you weren't even there?
So you were told to alter the estimate and to alter your findings as well?
I was told to alter my estimate. I don't know that the findings was told to be altered.
Were the alterations that you were told to make, were those consistent with your own review of the property and your own assessment of the damage?
No, sir.
Did you write that up in a detailed estimate, what you were told to do?
I did, yes, sir.
And Allstate then, they send that estimate ultimately to the property owner, is that correct?
I'm obligated to send the estimate to the policyholder.
And is there any record anywhere the policyholder would ever know that your initial findings, your recommendations were rejected and somebody told you to come in and alter them?
No, sir.
Let me just ask you more broadly. Have you ever been told in other cases with Allstate to alter or delete your findings?
Absolutely.
In fact, you testified just a second ago, I think, that you were frequently asked to alter factual findings, delete material, and sometimes include items that were false. Did I hear you correctly when you said that?
Yes, sir.
Include items that are false.
In the overwhelming majority of cases where you were asked to do something like this, did that cause the estimate to the policyholder to go up or to go down?
To go down.
Never up.
What is your assessment of what Allstate's ultimate goal here is? Is it to pay out the policy according to the terms of the policy to the best extent they can, or is it to protect their bottom line and to use you and your report as necessary to meet that end, to make sure they make as much money as possible?
100% to use me to enable them to make as much money as possible.
And you would say that this is a pattern. This isn't just something that happened one time, like in Ms. Miguel's case. You've been doing this for a long time, and you've observed this to be a pattern with Allstate and in the industry.
I have, yes, sir.
Thank you for your testimony.
So again, this is the Homeland Security. If you didn't know, Homeland Security is the one that monitors FEMA, and FEMA is the one that issues flood insurance. So all this insurance stuff just falls under Homeland Security because guess what? It's the Homeland. People need support for these giant companies mistreating people.
Senator Kim.
Let me see if you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to just pick up right where we're at, actually. Mr. Schroeder, Mr. Milliken.
Make it fun.
You both refer to an ethical obligation with your work. Can you explain to me and to those that aren't doing that work, what do you mean by that? Is there a code of conduct, a code of ethics that you have to abide by for your license? Mr. Schroeder?
To do an estimate that is true to, what is honest and true. My evaluation to be honest and true. That's what I commit to do.
Yeah. Mr. Milliken?
Yes, sir. It's our ethical obligation is to take the damage that we identify, apply it to the policy, and indemnify the insured for the full value of what we have found to be damaged.
Though. And they don't really read policies. When you have a hurricane, there's really no need to, because hurricane damage for most insurers are going to be covered. However, you do have to look at what they chose for their hurricane deductible, because some people have deductibles that are so high, you may not pay out anything.
So with that ethical...
He's from Jersey. I think he's a senator from Jersey.
Obligation, you're now coming across people that you're engaged with in the insurance companies that are telling you to change your estimate. Can you give a little bit more detail? Who is it that you're interacting with? Who are the people? What are their credentials in terms of being able to tell you or assess whether or not they think you're right or wrong? Mr. Milliken?
So there's a team of reviewers, and I don't have access or know their experience or background. Their label, I believe, is a vendor oversight team or team member or training member, but
So when a client comes to us with an ask to launch an influencer marketing
leads out there that you never know who they are. You never get to talk to them, never get to know them.
I think I kind of got sidetracked on your question.
No worries. But it sounds like they're not necessarily abiding by that same or have that same obligation when it comes to ethics in terms of the code of conduct. They're not adjusters in the same way that you are.
That's right. Yes, sir. So there's been many times whenever I, as an adjuster, and I'm an experienced adjuster. I'm not saying I'm the best adjuster in the world, but there's been many times where I went out to losses and inspected and identified with my own eyes hail damage, for example, on roofs, and then submitted my findings to this new process of the reviewers. And the reviewer tell me that what I'm seeing is not hail damage. Well, I was there. I seen the hail damage to the siding. I seen the hail damage throughout the neighborhood. I saw the hail damage to the roof. They reject my estimate and tell me they're not going to approve it. So
but you're not necessarily certain what expertise they have to be able to make that assessment, given that you were the one that was on the ground.
Well, I can't imagine they have any more expertise than I do. No, sir.
Yeah. When you're being told, Mr. Schroeder, you were talking about how they were telling you it's taking too long, and that's why you were removed from
doesn't even make sense
this particular case. But correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like if they remove you, they'd have to basically start from scratch all over again. Isn't that right? Wouldn't that seem to take a little bit more time too?
Yeah, that's correct, and that's exactly what happens. I actually had contacted Mrs. McGall just to see, out of my own curiosity, and to check in a month after I had been removed, and she had not received an estimate yet.
A month after
for those repairs.
Ridiculous.
So I don't think that was, accurate in why I was removed from.
And in fact, it's not just about the work that affects with you, Mr. Schroeder, but Ms. McGall. I keep hearing from people that feel like these delays are intentional, that it's meant to try to discourage the consumers, the policyholders from continuing on. Did you feel that way with how you were treated and just how the lack of response and some of the delays were?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Vertel, you were also talking about just significant delays and lack of communication. Did you feel at times that this was intentional?
Absolutely. I feel it's a battle of attrition at this point.
Mr. Milliken, coming back to you, when you're being told to change and adjust, do you feel pressure or did you feel fear that if you don't make changes that maybe you won't get future work from that insurance company before?
Yes, sir. I do have that fear. I've had that fear, but I'm also a pretty stubborn person. So it's difficult for me to tell someone something that's not true. So I've battled that quite extensively.
Mr. Schroeder, it seemed like you were kind of nodding your head as well. Do you feel that there have been times where you felt fear that, hey, look, if I don't make these adjustments, they might be taken off that case or prevented or, not given additional work by that company in the future?
Yeah, I certainly feel that way. And I think that's happened on this last deployment. I had multiple claims that were at the end pulled, and reassigned due to, an explanation that to me it didn't make sense. And it was coincidental with the timing of me having disagreements with the virtual, examiner that is just looking at a photo when I was the only one, of the two of us actually present during the inspection. There's a difference in a photo it's only, even a great photo is just a photo. When you're there, you not only get a better look, but you can feel, you have a better perception of what's going on. And, those disagreements to me, it didn't make sense. And it wasn't true. I disagreed and got pulled off a lot of those.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, you're hearing all this. You hear all this constantly. You went through this experience yourself. You're asking, you're here in front of the U.S. Senate. You're asking for the federal government to be able to step in on something that, traditionally has been sort of state jurisdiction in terms of oversight. Why is it that you think the federal government needs to step in? What has been your experience engaging with the state level, and how has that not satisfied, the ability for policyholders to be able to get the kind of justice they deserve?
Mm-hmm.
We have noticed a lack of action, Senator, on the state level against criminal fraud. I meet prosecutors and attorneys.
Okay, just as a reminder, he worked, I think he said 30 plus years in the insurance industry, if my notes here are right. And after Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy, he was underpaid for the claim on his own house. And so he started an advocacy because he felt like, man, if I know insurance and I've worked in this industry for so long and people are getting screwed, guess what? I'm getting screwed. Guess what? I bet other
General
people are
all over
too.
America, I routinely ask them, have you ever prosecuted somebody from the carrier side for cheating a consumer? The answer is invariably no. We see literally no prosecutions on the state level of people from the carrier side who are committing fraud to cheat consumers. We feel there's an issue with regulatory capture. In some cases, it's a limited capacity, budget strains, personnel strains. But we do believe that the federal government should be stepping in and investigating and prosecuting cases where the American consumer is getting cheated by their insurance company.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. I yield back.
Do you want more responses to your emails, text messages to win more clients? Dub.com, your sales platform that lets you.
Senator Bodie.
Thank you so much, Chair. Florida is no stranger to disasters. In fact, my state has suffered through some incredibly serious, damaging, tragic storms. And all too often, I find myself speaking to Floridians who are struggling to put not just their homes back together, but their lives back together, because so much of our lives is embedded and built within our homes. And let me just thank you all for taking time to be here today and talk to us. I know coming to a Senate hearing is no small thing. I want to thank the chair for putting this together and for making sure that we have two panels so that we can talk to a variety of people. We can only fit so many people here at the table right now. I think making sure that we are paying attention to the public discourse right now in terms of challenges in recovery and even some public stories about what is being found underneath insurance companies and claims and helping people recover. And I think the worst thing we could do right now is to not have a hearing like this to address what is being said in the broader conversation in America, especially in states where we have suffered storms and people are still right now trying to recover. Obviously, as an Attorney General, I even had to sue representative of FEMA after the last storm. And so we know that we can't just leave everything to happen and trust that everybody is going to play according to the rules without some sort of oversight. And so I think it is important that you are here today to share your stories. And I also think it's important for our colleagues and for the subcommittee to learn more about what is going on. Just as we would expect insurance companies to do the right thing and live up to the policies that they have offered and certainly have collected money and payment on, we know that is in every industry. We have those that are good faith players, and we have those that may seek to do harm or take advantage of a tragic situation. And I wanted to ask you, Ms. McGowl, I know that you have specifically had a bad experience, and I wondered, I think you mentioned you had the one adjuster come out and then another adjuster come out. Did anyone from Allstate ever call you and walk through the specifics of why something may be covered by your policy or not covered by your policy, or was it just an adjuster coming out and communicating with you?
No, no one called me to walk me through the details of the policy and how that would be applied. I was called mostly regarding scheduling matters and the adjusters.
They never.
So even
why would they walk a homeowner through the insurance process? Why would Allstate educate a homeowner on the insurance process? Wouldn't that mean Allstate would just have to pay them more? They would never do that. That's like educating your opponent on your playbook. Nah, you read it yourself. We supplied it to you.
After the multiple estimates, as they gave you lower estimates than you had.
I mean, just think how many, if you ask 10 homeowners, 10 homeowners, have you ever read your policy? People, oh yeah, I looked at it. No. Have you ever read your policy and to know exactly what you're covered for? Nobody reads those 70 pages of the policy. Nobody.
Received. No one called to tell you line by line why something may or may not have been covered.
That is correct.
And Mr. Schroeder, I'll ask you first, when you submitted your estimate, when you had discussions, did anyone go with you line by line why something might not be worth what you estimated or might not be covered by the policy?
Yeah, that's the other thing. They don't even tell you. Well, why not? Well, we didn't find that this was damaged or was necessary. How, in what way? Who said that?
Policy.
I sound like an owl.
Are you asking when I submit an estimate to the reviewers, do they go through? If there's something they disagree with, they would say to remove it. There's typically not an explanation for why, and when there is, more often than not, it's not what I would say legitimate, not according to the policy. It's that hail damage isn't hail damage, take it off, or that is wear and tear and not hail damage, take it off. Those are the answers I would get. But no, they wouldn't go through my entire estimate line by line with me. No.
And Ms. McGowl, I'm going to come back to you for a moment. When you didn't receive right away the money you needed to repair the home, were you forced to come out of pocket to repair the house?
We have done relatively minor repairs so far, simply because we do not have any insight into the budget that we might have at hand. So only the most crucial repairs, and for example, putting a tarp up on the roof to prevent further damage or rainfall has been done so far.
And you had to pay for that just out of your own money that was probably taxed on your income?
Yes, that's correct. And of course, engaging with external experts such as the engineer was also out of pocket.
So engineer costs could be like $1,500 more, if depending on what their pricing is. So she had to pay for that on her own. She had to pay to put the tarp up on her own, which if you don't put the tarp up, they're going to say you let more damage happen and then further deny the claim. So where are the comments and the questions, y'all? Where are the comments and the questions? Put some comments and some questions into, or put some questions into the comments. Have you worked at Allstate? I want to know, have you ever worked at State Farm? Tell me more about, who's watching. What questions do you have about the industry? And then we'll get going. I want to see some more questions. We've been watching a little bit here. I need more than just, do you adjust claims? Who else has a question? More than just, did you adjust claims in South Carolina, which I have, and I do. So I'm asking y'all, tell me what your experience is. Have you ever known a homeowner to go through this where they were underpaid? Have you, even if it's not homeowners or from a store, maybe it was from car insurance or something, most people are familiar with that. Health insurance. I think what we can do is we could read some of these comments and tell we get some questions from you guys. But I mean, look, I know people say that, but guess what? If the rates are good, people are going to go. So look, like this guy, this person, Adam, says he was rear-ended, and I remember reading this earlier. His teeth were knocked out. That was November 23, and he's just now getting some of his bills paid like 3 weeks ago, nearly 2 years. So he's been fighting with his insurance company. Okay, I pay them. I could see if it was the other insurance company. So as he said, it's blatant that they were dragging their feet. How many comments on this video? Okay, just under 100. Allstate has been taken to court. They drag it out for years. That's always been the way. Yeah. Let's see. How about they bring in insurance lobbyists and question them about what members of Congress have been bought and how much they receive? Okay, so maybe he works for the insurance companies, right? Insurance lobbyists and question them about what members of Congress have been bought and how much they receive. So he's saying, okay, so wait, he's saying like, see how much, okay, because congressmen are letting these things happen. They know these things have been done for years. The one lady just said she even had to pull a case against FEMA. Okay, so they're saying, go ahead and see how many of them have been bought, because they have. And look, this person has said, and nothing will change. These hearings are informative, yet infuriating, but zero resulting in accountability. That's why I said they are just there for showmanship. Okay, so I want to see questions. We'll get back to the video, but I definitely want to see questions. What questions and comments do you guys have? So this question 10. Okay, I'm not going to even try to say that. But just imagine how many people have home and auto insurance that never put in a claim. The insurance company has literally gotten rich, and then when they do put in a claim for which the people paid, they get cheated and they're given a hard time. Let's see what else we have. They do this with regular claims too. Absolutely. It's not just these big insurance claims that they do it with, but only the big insurance claims get the attention. So even that guy is like, oh, $400,000. Well, what about the homeowner who, she got 10% of that money? What about the homeowner that needs just $20,000 and gets $200,000? Right now, how are they going to make up the 18? But nobody pays attention to the small claims, and no attorney will take small claims. Some public adjusters won't even take claims under a certain amount. So it's sad. So that Allstate guy was the worst representative to send in this hearing. He comes off angry, put off, and dispassionate. Well, maybe. I wonder which Allstate guy he's talking about. The price of insurance has gone up every year, and I've never had a claim because that's what they do. That's why I don't understand when people say, well, I don't want to file a claim. Why? Because my rates are going to go up. They're going to go up regardless. Okay. Let's see. These are common practices. State Farm has a known practice of sending injured people to independent medical examinations with specific intentions of misrepresenting real injuries as pre-existing conditions or downplaying the injury. Now, how can somebody say they had a pre-existing condition if you never known they had a pre-existing condition? So let's see, they overcharge for policies for, I think maybe Colorado, maybe to make $26 million. There should be a law that they should give homeowners a rebate if they don't put a claim in. Hey, maybe that's the solution. Insurance, legalize racketeering. Sure, they take your money quick, demand your payment, or withdraw it without your bank. If you're late, you get penalized or canceled. But when you need them, get ready to put your tutu on and jump through hoops and get and grab your ankles. Oh my gosh. Let's see what else we had. Had Allstate, they wouldn't cover anything. So let's see. Let's see what else. What's going on in Congress? Just this week alone, I've encountered 2 reasonable Democrats. That's a record. Okay, come on. So let's look at what he said. Let's go to this. Less than 277,000 per house on average for home damage destroyed in California. There's no way that's close to what they should be paying those people. This is pure theater. Nothing will change because the big boys writing the checks won't let it change, okay? But at least more people can see just how greedy these insurance companies are. Okay, so what questions do y'all have? I'm waiting for a question before we go back to the video. Insurance companies are a ripoff, either by depreciation of items from the roof on down to the mixer on your countertop. True. They always look for something like you don't have a separate flood policy. It's usually something. So let's see what else. I think it's time we start looking at the CEOs. Why? Let's see, and see how much they make, and then see how people have gone through these very situations under these folks. I mean, if you look at what happened at the beginning of the year with the Blue Cross Blue Shield guy, rest in peace. But, maybe if they would have looked at that, maybe something could have been avoided. There are adjusters that have been instructed to undercut. In fact, I know for a fact adjusters go out and then they just rip stuff out. I've worked at Allstate. I've worked at State Farm. So it's really, truly a tragedy. So what else do y'all want to know about insurance and claims? What else do y'all want to know? Who is out there watching? What do y'all want to know about insurance, about claims? Tell me what's good on this side of the game. You're watching this. Why? Who's watching this? Where are you reporting in from? Colorado was mentioned over here. Georgia was mentioned. New Jersey was mentioned. Let's see. I have had issues with farmers insurance, which because my house is older, they increased my premium so that I couldn't afford it. I was told companies do that to get you to go somewhere else. Yep, absolutely. I had one client whose policy in 4 years went from $2,000 to $16,000, y'all. State Farm. Let's see. I had a newer house and had to have my roof replaced. They dropped me because they said I had too many claims. When I informed my agent that I only had one claim, he told me every time, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I see this. Every time I call to ask a question, it was considered a claim. People don't know that. When I inform my agent every time, so you can't just call and ask about damage. I was told last year by an ex-insurance employee that they increase premiums every year in order to collect more money for the claims the company has paid out. I don't know about that. I have lived in my home for 6 years, and prices have become astronomical. The reason why I don't know about this part is because truth is they don't lose money by paying out claims. All the money that's there, they get to make interest on. They never, if you look at their financial books, they never go in the black. I do not agree with the statement that they are all bad. Well, one bad apple ruins the bunch, right? Have you guys ever experienced this type of things happening in your neck of the woods or know somebody that this is happening to? Let's see. Ban all insurance companies. Oh, the government tried that before. I don't know if that was, it helped. Let's see what else. The Allstate guy is blowing wind out his ass. I don't know. I dropped Allstate today. That's what this guy said. To both senators, do you think the CEO of the country at any time knows exactly what's going on in any departments at any time? I don't think so. Okay, we got a question. So I'm a former roofer in Jackson, Mississippi, and I'm interested in becoming an adjuster. After I get my PC license, where do I begin looking for work in my area? Well, I would maybe look at the roofing company again. Or you may have to wait on the, thanks for your question too, J-Mac. Appreciate that. But you may have to go back and just that way you can get experience on your resume. But you can also go to, I actually just released a video the other day about how you can take your experience. I started as a roofer. You may be surprised, but yeah, I did start as a roofer. I was on the roof yesterday. And use ChatGTP to help show that your roofing experience and maybe some other work that you've done will help you be able to do work as an adjuster for an insurance company. I'm just not familiar with how much work is available in your area when there's not a storm. Most people travel through the state chasing storms, unless you're a staff adjuster. So I would look at working with companies that are small, like your roofing company. You can be, if you're a licensed claims adjuster, you can actually start to, discuss things with the adjusters. Now they, have a different level of respect because you're licensed. You can also work for mitigation companies, plumbers, contractors. So that way you can also get that type of experience under your belt too. Okay. As he attacks people he disagrees with, he tries to figure out. So this guy is talking about the senator. He should try to figure out what they are going to do to fix the issue. When people feel attacked, the first thing they do is go into defense mode. We all know they do it to get on record of denying it and move on. That's what I feel like this is. So look, I just mentioned work for a restoration company, and most insurance companies do the same. They're crooks and need Doge in their life, okay? I have well over 2,000 jobs that adjusters have attempted to reduce, okay? Let's one more and then we'll go back to the video since we had that question from J-Mac. Thanks so much for that question. All state CEOs should have been there to, why? I mean, this is a committee, congressional committee. I mean, it's just a committee though. They're not testifying today. Instead, Allstate sends the head of claims, which they should, who did not represent the company well at all. Oh, that must have been who that guys was saying. That guy, Allstate guy, was blowing it out his rear end. Despite being prepped, he was a poor witness and did not represent Allstate positively, showing no empathy for what Allstate policyholders were complaining about and giving meek, prepared answers. I mean, you all know that was going to happen. And this real quick, AAA, I like them. Oops, let me go back. I like AAA for homes. They've been pretty.
Tell me I didn't have the time, the money, the people.
All right, so 3, 2, 1, and we're back on the video.
Or rainfall has been done so far.
And you had to pay for that just out of your own money that was probably taxed on your income?
Yes, that's correct. And of course, engaging with external experts such as the engineer was also out of pocket.
Would that have been helpful to be able to deduct from your taxes the money you had to lay out to recover for your roof with storm damage?
I have not deducted those expenses from my taxes at this point.
Would that have been helpful?
Would that have been helpful? Likely, yes.
I've been exploring with colleagues, and a bipartisan approach to trying to address money that people are having to use from their own pocket. They get money from their jobs and then they have to outlay it to stop rain from coming into their home. And then they still have to pay taxes on that money. Would that have been helpful to you and your family?
Absolutely. That would have been helpful.
And I don't want to go over time, but Mr. Quinn, I would like to follow up with you. I know that you've been so focused on this, and I know a lot of your energy and time and talent has been focused on this issue. Do you believe it would be helpful? And I know many states are set up and structured different ways, right? One agency may have statutory authority to investigate these matters where another agency wouldn't. And so if that one isn't moving fast enough or this one wants to complement it, sometimes that's not available and it looks different in different states. Do you think it would be helpful to have a cross-section from different agencies being able to, within one state, task force, or even federally, a task force where the agents or the officers are specially trained in this area?
What?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that would be very helpful.
What kind of question?
Thank you, Chair.
That was like loaded.
Mr. Milliken, can I just come back to you for a second?
Like they just
can I just ask?
Loaded.
Senator Hassan, Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Like that.
Within one state task force, or even federally, a task force where the agents or the officers are specially trained in this area?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Chair.
I wonder what that next video is.
Mr. Milliken, can I just come back to you for a second? Can I just ask you, did you think that Allstate might retaliate against you for your testimony here today? Did it ever cross your mind?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And why did you think that might happen?
Oh, no, that's the guy who's... No.
Well, I mean, I got a phone call from pilot management indicating that they were aware of it, and then got word from people in the office that I was going to be on the cutoff list, which has not happened in probably 6 years.
Okay, so wait a minute. I just want to make sure that I got this right, and I want to be sure everybody in the room understands it. You're telling me that after you agreed to testify here today, you got word that you were on a blacklist, essentially, from Allstate, and that you were going to be penalized in some way?
I've been told, yes, sir. I've been told that I'm going to be
he's not going to
worked out of the storm in Georgia, which is 100%. I mean, it's cutting me off. It's eliminating me, guaranteed.
So they're retaliating against you. It sounds like they've already set it in motion. Yes, telling me that's what you've heard because you testified as to what happened.
That's not cool.
Yeah, because I was going to testify. Yes, sir.
Yeah, even before you got here today, they were doing this. I mean, that is really unbelievable.
Right.
Absolutely unbelievable. Why do you think why would they do that? Because they don't want the truth to be known? I mean, what are they so afraid of in your testimony?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I thought that by telling the truth, I wouldn't have any problem. Swear to goodness, I had no idea that the company I work for would hold a grudge about speaking the truth.
And I just want to underline what you've said today, and you too, Mr. Schroeder, because I want to be sure people get it. What you've testified to is not only did Allstate not do right by Ms. Miguel, not only did they tell both of you to alter your evaluations, they told you to alter your findings, to push down the estimate lower and lower and lower. But you both have testified today that you saw this happen over and over and over, that you were told, you said, Mr. Milligan, you've been told multiple times to alter factual findings, to delete information, to lower your estimate, that's happened repeatedly. It's a pattern.
Yes, sir.
And you said the same thing, Mr. Schroeder. It's a pattern over and over.
Yeah, it's a
not just in this one deployment, not just one little thing, not one little area, but this has happened over and over again.
For years, I've seen this trend.
For years. I mean, that's extraordinary, I have to say. And I want to say thank you to all the witnesses. I want to say thank you to the two of you in particular, because you've really risked a lot by being here today. And I'm sorry, Mr. Milliken, that they're retaliating against you. Mr. Schroeder, I know that they retaliated against you by yanking the case right out from under you when you were working with Ms. Miguel to try to get a fair award for her under the policy. That's just outrageous. It may be illegal. If it's not, it should be. And I just want to tell you, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you are done right by, and that people like Ms. Miguel across this country are done right by. And that brings me to you, Mr. Vertel. I want to give you the chance just to say a little bit more about your story. We've been talking about Allstate, but you were a policyholder of State Farm. I think we've got a picture of your house as well. Let's take a look here just so people get a sense of it. This is your home after Hurricane Helene. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's a lot of damage right there. Now, did you say that you had a small child at this time?
The instant relief for snorers in 2025.
Trees on that thing.
Was pregnant?
With our second, yes.
Wow. And this was taken back right after the hurricane, back in September, about October, something like that?
Right after the storm, yes.
So, and did you say Allstate now has fixed it all up and it's all good?
The State Farm has not. And
State Farm, sorry.
The home sits untouched. Current condition is inhabitable.
So they've done nothing in those, you said the number of days,
228 days of our home being uninhabitable,
228 days. And your wife has since had your second child. Is that correct?
2.5 months ago, yes.
So you've got a 2.5-month-old, you've got a 2-year-old. Nobody gets any sleep in your house, I suspect.
This keeps us up more at night than they do.
I bet that's true. And you are coming out of pocket to pay for your own housing because you can't live here. Is that right?
We've received drips of reimbursement, but we've had to fight tooth and nail for every one of those.
So, just tell us what it's like to go through this with this company. I mean, how long you had your policy for a little while, I imagine. I mean, you didn't get the day before the storm.
We've been State Farm customers probably for the better part of a decade.
Wow. And so you pay your premiums like everybody else, right?
Always.
And yet they won't work with you. They won't give you any help. Your home still hasn't been touched. You've got a little kid, you've got a little baby. They're not doing anything for you. You decided ultimately that you needed to stand up for yourself and actually try to fight State Farm on this. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
What would have happened if you hadn't have done that? Do you think, what was the strategy here? If you you still haven't gotten the appropriate award, damage award. So what would have happened though if you hadn't have stood up and started to demand your rights?
I feel that we were perceived as an easy mark, that we needed to be in our home quickly. And so we were going to take this on ourselves. Right now, we simply have not received any funds that would allow us to fix our home. So if we had to come out of pocket, it changes everything about our life, where we live, if our kids could go to school, everything.
It's just extraordinary. You should never have had to go through that, Mr. Vitale. I want to offer my sympathies, my apologies to you, to your wife, to your little ones. That's absolutely outrageous. And the kind of behavior we've heard testified to here today, it sounds like to me you're a victim of. Another one of these massive insurance companies who takes your money. They're happy to take your money. But when this happened to you, they won't give you anything. It's delay, delay, delay. Mr. Quinn, let me just ask you, you've heard this testimony today. You're very familiar with it. You hear it all the time.
Yes.
Can I just ask you, you've heard testimony about Allstate and about, frankly, fraud that goes on there. In your view, in your professional judgment, is that kind of fraud limited to Allstate?
No, sir, it is not. It is pretty much industry-wide.
Tell us more about that. I mean, it's industry-wide because why? Tell us what the industry looks like.
They're all trying to make money.
We believe this goes back to the 90s with what's called the McKinsey report. A consulting firm sort of trained insurance companies to use their claims department as a profit center. And they actually trained their staff to come in and short people on claims. They did it specifically starting out with Allstate, and then they took it on the road for almost every other insurance company, and it is now basically industry standard. I will say there's nothing you're hearing that's unique. The people that are speaking are unique because they have the courage to do it, but I hear these stories every single day, and they are the exact same stories over and over and over, and working class families getting taken advantage of by insurance companies without any ability to fight back.
So what you're telling us is these big insurance companies went to a consulting firm, McKinsey, and asked them to design a program to help rip off policyholders.
That is correct, sir.
And has that been successful? I mean, has their program been successful in ripping off policyholders?
It's been incredibly successful, sir. It is actually part of the systemic fraud that's occurring every day now.
That's extraordinary. Senator Kemp.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Milliken, Mr. Schroeder, I wanted to just zoom out a little bit. You know, we talked about major disasters, but Mr. Milliken, you were talking about just in general, there's a lot more higher volume in your work. And you in particular said that has increased the use of people that are just kind of relying on photographs, right? Is that correct in terms of just, trying to get out there, people that might not have the skill set that you and Mr. Schroeder have, but they're out there telling us, taking photographs. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I got to get.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks you guys for tuning in and watching this part one. Maybe tomorrow we'll come back to part two. Does anybody have any last questions? Maybe you need help in getting into the industry. The reason why I did this because you guys need to know how you're going to be asked to hurt people, and you're going to be you at the forefront. You're the face of the business. You're the face of the company. So nobody else is going to have an impact for a homeowner like you are. So any final questions I want to take? Another 60 seconds just to make sure you guys don't have any questions that you're like, wait, so how do I get started in this industry? I don't have this type of experience that these guys have. What can I do in order to get started? You can ask a question in the comments. J Mac, he asked this question. He got an answer for what he can do down in Mississippi. We have someone else who left a comment earlier asking about if I adjust claims in South Carolina. And of course, I mentioned that I do. So if you're tuned in right now, there's a bunch of you out there watching this right now. Go ahead, take a second. Let me know that you have a question in the comments, and then I can get you guys an answer. Ask me anything. Ask me literally anything that you guys want. If you guys happen to be looking for work, if you stayed with me this long, I appreciate that. I do know that there are pre-interview presentations going in for those who may live in certain states. Not every state are we hiring in, like Mississippi. Unfortunately, Jay, we're not hiring in Mississippi right now, but we are hiring in 30 some other states. See if your state is on the list by sending the text message to 312-883-2064. So you can schedule a pre-interview presentation to see if you have the right experience and most importantly, see if you're in the right state to be able to get some work. Okay. All right. Well, no new questions came in. So that's all I'm going to do for tonight. Tomorrow's a good day of inspections happening. You guys can follow me on at Insurance Complaints on TikTok. I do lives over there for my inspections. Just did one yesterday. So I am happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Just send the question via text at 312-883-2064. All right, y'all. That's it for me. And as always, thank you for watching.